Hello, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to another episode, the next episode, the second episode of Bound to Talk Basketball. I'm Blake Walker. He's Joey Kearns. It's good to see everyone. Joey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Blake. I'm ready to talk some basketball. We've been vacant for a little bit, but we're ready to get locked in here. So
I got to ask, though, we ended on last days of school what was your last day of school? 22nd?
21st? Yeah, something like we got out early. We might have been like the 19th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I always joke about and maybe you'll agree here when we talk, it's such an interesting part to get a 2-week break in the middle of a basketball season, because I feel like a lot of teams sit back and say, okay, this is how we were through the first 3 weeks. And now it's like you got 5, 6, 7 weeks to go. If you're, some teams are different teams coming out of the break.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's just adjustments if like you're struggling and then you maybe you find like they're playing scrimmages and like having these little like playing other schools over break and they're all practicing. So if you can come back and get it dialed in, because if you play good in the first half of the season, you don't play good in the second half, it doesn't mean anything because the playoffs you'll just get rinsed. So We'll see who's gonna make the jump and who's gonna just stay strong. So
well, this is the girls episode. We're going to do it separate now because we're going to try to give each girls and boys side of basketball their own take, if you will, or give them their own time or whatever. So this is the girls episode. Boys episode should be out tomorrow or whatever. We're going to try it. We're recording this on January 2nd, Tuesday. There are games tonight, correct? Yes, there are games tonight. So the games start immediately tonight out of break. I know some schools aren't even back till tomorrow, but games start tonight, so they start the new year off pretty quickly. We're going to run through 5A, 4A, 3A, 2A, 1A, and then we're going to talk about the games to watch this week. There are plenty of games to watch. We'll just start out at the top, meaning top number. 5A is where we'll start out. So, Joey, you put together a lot of the notes for this stuff. All these rankings are from some of the rankings are from, all of them are from the Girls Athletic Union. Some have our Bound Influence, the Bound Power Index. Some are BCM. So just kind of think about that. Joey, the number one team in 5A, there's no big reason to think not. Johnston is the number one team in Class 5A. I don't know about you. It's Johnston, but it's a while until you get to the number 2 team, in my opinion, at least.
yeah, oh my gosh, dude. Like they had the big game of the week last would have been like before break was DCG number 1 versus number 1 and they beat them 85-32.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. The talent that's on this team is ridiculous. Like top to bottom, the amount of players that are going to play at the next level is ridiculous. So, and maybe, I mean, Davenport North has some good players, so maybe they can get there. I mean, Divine and Houston, those 2 players are really good. So like if they can compete with them, I don't know. Their 2 losses are to out of state teams, I think. So yeah. I don't know if they're at the same level with them or not, but I mean, Johnston's ridiculous.
I think the DCG one was crazy. I mean, I don't care who you are. Like that was the number 1 team in one class beating the other one team, like one class lower, not 2, not 3. They beat the 4A best team by almost 50 points. So that's just insane. DCG probably didn't phase them. It was just like, all right, well, that's how we stack up. Let's be better because of it. The game that got me, Joey, was the Hopkins game, because we know how good Hopkins is. They've been in the last 7 state titles in Minnesota. Paige Buckers went to Hopkins University. A lot of people don't know that, but she went to Hopkins University. They beat them 70-61. So, and usually Hopkins comes in and has their way with the Central Iowa teams that they do face. But the thing, and you might agree, they have 3 really good scorers, and there's no way all 3 of them are off on the same
night. Exactly. And like Lewis, she's just like, I mean, she's a whole different level of player. And then to go along with like everybody else that like, what's her name that's going to Iowa State? I'm blanking on the name even. I don't have it down, but like they're just ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, she's like, she's crazy good as well. But that you talked about Hopkins, they've played quite a few teams like Dowling beat them by
Yep.
3, 60. They must have all played in a tournament together. And then I think they played one other team, but like, so they beat Davenport North, and Davenport North is really just led by those two girls. It's Houston and Barrage. I hope I'm saying that right. And Barrage, she's the number 9 recruit in 2025, so she's really highly rated in her respect. So,
Yeah.
but we'll see. I mean, I guess it's the 5 CIML teams in Davenport North, and that's
Yeah.
it, really. And
That's
yeah, go ahead.
I just that's what it seems like. I mean, it's but I can't throw anyone out because PV was the same exact, like PV was in Davenport North spot last year and they went and won the whole thing. So it's like,
Yeah,
who knows? But
like
another thing for Johnston, another big win was Waukee, beat them 72-54. That's a Waukee team we'll talk about that is on the rise very quickly. But yeah, Johnston's very good. Let's switch to Davenport North there that you had at number 2. They're number 2, and I think that's great. But they have 2 not concerning games, but they only beat Central DeWitt by 1. And then at that tournament on that Saturday where Johnston played Hopkins, whatever, they only beat Centennial by 3. Centennial is, I think they're still sitting at 500, something like that. They're a good team, but it's like they're definitely not at the top yet in the CIML this year.
Yeah, I think that I just think they're good. I think like those two girls, and they're gonna be good every game. They're just that high of recruits. And then they only beat Centennial by 3. They shot 36% from the field, and then they like lost the turnover battle 16-9. And they were down going into the fourth quarter, but then they still managed to win the game. So like if you get them on an off day and they beat a good Centennial team, like Centennial's got 5 losses and it's to the 5 top teams.
Yeah.
So they're good. And if you catch them on a good day, and I just think that they can hang with those guys. So, and then like Central DeWitt, like again, they didn't play very good. They actually don't have Central DeWitt doesn't have their stats in from that game, so it's hard to tell. So get your stats in, Central DeWitt.
Yeah, you gotta get it.
But they'll be tough, and they won't meet many of these guys for the rest of the season until the postseason. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. Dowling Catholic is at 3. They are the second best team by far because they beat Waukee. They are led by Ava Zedeker, who, in my opinion, is the top in 5A. I think she's the best player in 5A. I know Johnston has a lot of really talented players, but Zedeker is just on a whole different level. They beat Ankeny, and then they beat Pleasant Valley 43-36. And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't score a point in the first quarter of that game. So Dowling Catholic got things put together. They do have losses to Valley Providence losses to Valley, Providence Academy, and Johnston. They beat Hopkins, like you said, and they're young. I mean, they don't have a lot of senior leadership by any means.
Yeah, and they just got like Zedeker's there, but then like there's a lot of great role players like Mueller, or it might be Mueller. I'm sorry, she's averaging 15, but then 11 boards a game, and then Leia Trayton and Caitlin Mueller. I'm assuming they're siblings, but all those role players. So if Zedeker doesn't have that, they kind of like have that. Like North, they only have the 2, and then that's kind of it. But like Dowling's a more complete team, and like you said, they're young. They're all not seniors, the top 5 scorers, so they can hang with everybody. It's just going to be a matter of can they do it later on in the playoffs. So
yeah, Waukee at 4. I love this Waukee team. I think they're still this break. I think was good for them. They lost to Dowling and they lost to Johnston. So they're 2 biggest teams that they faced so far. Johnston held serve. I think it was tied at the end of the third quarter, and then they got taken out. And then Dowling 60-50. That was kind of a tough one. They beat Centennial, so that's a big step up for them. They do play Valley on Friday. I don't know about you, but that will really help separate the top 3 teams. Like that'll tell us who our top 3 is.
Yeah, Valley's kind of interesting too, because like they hadn't lost coming into Johnston, and then they lost to Johnston obviously, and then they got smoked by Southeast Polk. So
which was just the oddest game I think I really don't know what happened.
I mean, 30 piece. They shot 24% from the field and 5% from 3. So
that's what they hold teams to. They don't want it. They only let Centennial score 24 points or something like that. Like I couldn't believe that score when I saw it.
So it'll be a good game for Waukee to prove like, hey, we are the fourth team, like we deserve it, or is it Valley and that was just a fluke, or it may be Centennial. Like Centennial's playing really well now, so maybe they're gonna get some of these teams in the second half of the season. I don't know. So,
Well,
but
and
yeah, they're no, go
Waukee,
ahead.
Emily Sorensen, phenomenal. She's still a junior. Sophia Hope, senior, we used to go to Valley. She's great. Marin Salo, she can really take and make the three ball. She's only a sophomore. Kirsten Hauk, I think she's a senior. Very talented team. And then Valley, Elise Yeager. I mean, she is the focal point, but that Southeast Polk game worries you just a little bit because you see that and you're like, okay, they're winning, they're taking care, but then yeah, just a very, very tough outing against the Rams. That just shows how good the CIML is, man. I mean,
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
Southeast folks about middle of the pack. They could just take care of the number 2 team at the time like nothing.
Yeah, they gotta. I mean, they like anybody can beat anybody. It's ridiculous how good. And they have to beat Ankeny. I think they play Ankeny tonight. If they want to like say that we're still here and we're not going to fall off, they have to beat them tonight, like in a statement win. I would say they did beat Sioux City East, who they're a tough team.
Yeah, top
They're
15.
yeah, they're top 15, 6-3, so that's a solid team. That's a good win, but it'll all see like how the break went. I think they play tonight or maybe it's on Thursday, but play Ankeny at some point, and then yeah, that big game against Waukee. So
Yeah. Talk about the two Ankeny teams real quick, Ankeny and Ankeny Centennial. Well, we talked about Centennial a little bit. They've lost 5 in a row, but the thing is, like you said, they've lost to all the top 5 teams in the top 5 of the IGHSAU rankings. Maya Crawford, Jaden Pratt, they're young. They don't have any seniors on this team. Or either they don't have any senior. No, they don't. They don't have any seniors on the entire roster. So they're still pretty young. They're going to figure things out. They're a very talented team, very talented head coach. Ankeny, on the other hand, still, I mean, they're figuring things out. I think Ankeny and Ankeny Centennial are going to be right there with each other. Centennial just barely edged out Ankeny in a phenomenal game. But like you said, Ankeny plays Valley tonight, so we'll get to see if they kind of separate themselves a little bit. Jayla Williams might be a star in the making for Ankeny.
Yeah, she's pretty tough as a sophomore, and she's averaging 18.6 in this league, and this conference is crazy. So she's tough. The win for Centennial against North Polk, that was really like I thought when they did that, I was like, oh, that makes them feel like they actually are there and they can beat some of those top 5 teams because North Polk is good.
Yeah.
And I mean, they didn't beat them by 50 like Johnson did, like they beat DCG, but I think North Polk's the best team in 4A. Even though they've lost to DCG, I do think they're the best, but that's a big win for them. So, I mean, they play Northwest and Southeast Polk, and Southeast Polk had that big win, so maybe they're on the come up too, but we'll see. So
Pleasant Valley is at 7. The defending state champions lost a lot from last year, but still pretty good. Quinn Weiss, very talented. They just have a couple girls that come back that are just really good athletes. Clemens playing softball at Iowa State, like you put down. Their losses are to Centennial, Davenport North, and Dowling, so it's not like they're losing to lower tier opponents.
yeah, they're a tough team. They'll get it figured out. I mean, like you said, they came back and won the whole thing last year. They're 8-3, and they'll play probably not as tough of a schedule coming out for the rest of the year. They'll play some of those Missouri Valley teams, and they'll probably play Cedar Falls, I'd guess, at some point. But they'll get it figured out. They're tough, and like we said, Quinn Weiss is heading to Drake. She's a solid player. So,
Couple Eastern Iowa teams here. Cedar Falls only losses to Ankeny, and that doesn't concern me. But it's like one of those things that yes, they have good wins. They beat Xavier, they beat Western Dubuque, but those are teams that are lower in class than them. I think they're a very talented team. They could easily make it to the tournament. Grace Knudsen is phenomenal. I mean, she's going to get hers every single night. There's no doubt about that. And then Prairie's at the number 10 spot, 7-1. They're only lost to Johnston, who they got beat by 40. Like you said, they've taken care of everyone else. So another one of those teams that could just sneak their way in here as the season goes on.
yeah, and like some of these teams, they'll end up they'll make the tournament because like not all the CIML teams will get their own bracket. Like they're gonna have to play each other, and some are gonna get knocked out, and which is not gonna be fun to see, but it's just gonna happen. So like Cedar Falls or Prairie or PV or Sioux City East, they'll get in there and they'll end up playing each other. Is Lindmar 5A? Yeah, they would be. I must
Yep.
have done something wrong in them, but they play Cedar Falls, and they're kind of tough. They play a tough schedule, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Prairie plays Wallert this week, and Wallert's a good 4A team, and they
Yeah, we'll
haven't
talk about
really. So we'll see if they can really keep up with some of those. I really think that it's in 5A. It's in those top. It's in the top 6, and that's
Yeah,
it.
I think so
And
too.
Centennial's even like maybe we'll see kind of how they make their way after winter break, but it's definitely in the top 5 for sure. So
Yeah, I agree. I think favorites, Johnston by far. Who's your sleeper pick as of right
my
now in top 10?
my sleeper, jeez, I don't know. I think it's got to be PV. Just like they've done it before, and they have a little bit of seniority, but not a lot. But they've done it before, so they know it, and I think they'll just get it figured out. So that's kind of my sleeper. I think. I don't know. It's hard to like say that any of these teams are really like pretenders because I think they're all good.
I don't think as of now, I think it's so early. It'd be hard to even say so far. I'd say my sleeper would probably be it's either Waukee or Dowling. I'm not really sure. I'd probably give it to Dowling just because Dowling beat Waukee, but Waukee's still a very good basketball team, very talented. Coach Franklin's a very good coach. I think Waukee will be a tough team to beat, but yeah, I'll go with Dowling as my sleeper. So
okay, yeah, and we'll see. I mean, they all play each other all the time, which is kind
I
of
was gonna say,
awesome. But it's also kind of like they just beat each other up all the time, so it's hard to really tell who's the best.
yeah.
Besides Johnston and North, but
We will roll to 4A. Dallas Center Grimes holds as the number 1 team despite the loss to Johnston. They have wins over Ballard, North Polk, and Des Moines Christian. Boy, Ballard. We might bring up Ballard here in a little bit, but Ballard is really slipping. I've just noticed that. Obviously, they play a style of basketball that if you figure it out, you're easy to get around it. But I think they're 5-5, 5-6. That's just unknown territory for Ballard. DCG beat Xavier by 1. That was kind of this is why I'm surprised DCG stayed number 1 because I think Clear Creek Amana is the best team in 4A. But DCG beat number 15th ranked Xavier by just 1 point at the tournament at Johnston earlier in the season. They beat Norwalk 55-20 because Norwalk shot the worst I have ever seen a team shoot. Bailey Birmingham, who is a phenomenal athlete, she got held only to 14, but that's 14 out of their 20 points they scored. But DCG is just really interesting. They won it last year. They finally broke through, won that state title that's been eluding them. But they're a different team with Coach Jones.
yeah, I don't know what to think. That 50 point, like if you're really a top team, and maybe you are, I don't think you should ever get beat by 50, regardless of.
But you got to think DCG doesn't have like the size by any means, and not saying Johnson has a lot of size, but I think it's just a testament to how generational this Johnston team is, honestly. But I wouldn't look into it too much. It's just kind of one of those things. A team gets hot, and you do what you got to do. But I don't know.
Yeah, they think that part of it maybe like if I got beat by 50, I would hope it would motivate me to try to like we're gonna play harder. And they kind of took it out a little bit on Norwalk, which I feel bad. They got like Norwalk's a solid team. They hadn't lost until they I don't remember their first loss was, but then they got 35. So they're solid. They'll still be good. And then like you said, your Womack, Clear Creek, they might be the best
phenomenal.
team.
It's funny because they're literally basically the entire volleyball team. So they don't get like a lot of those seniors don't get to go back around one more time and be like, oh, we lost to North Scott in the tournament. Instead, they can take their anger out on everybody in basketball. And that seems to be what's happening is they're now going back at it against I don't think they want to lose again. Like they said, we already got upset once. We don't want it to happen again. Ava Locklear is phenomenal. They beat Benton 67-42. The Solon game was a big, just like, whoa. I mean, Callie leaving and that whole team, she's headed off to Iowa. Solon's good, and Clear Creek Amana just took him to the woodshed. I mean, it was just a unbelievable finish for the Clippers. I think they're phenomenal.
Yeah, they have a couple other big games. Like, I mean, the Womack's the best it's been and got to be a while for
Mount
at least
Vernon,
the girls.
Benton. I mean, it's a good conference.
Yeah, and that chick I don't remember her name right off the bat for Mount Vernon, but she's really good. They both won. So we'll see.
quickly rolling back on DCG, the Little Hawkeye is definitely not as good as it's been. Indianola is nowhere near the team that they've been. Oski, Newton, not the same. Pella's decent, but Pella got smoked by North Polk, so it's like, Pella could be a on-off team. Norwalk obviously is the second best team, but yeah, it's the DCG won't get a lot of conference opponents that are tough. That's the difference here with Clear Creek, Amana, and North Polk. In, night out, they're getting tough conference games.
Yeah, but North Polk's DCG's like they beat Ballard when Ballard was Ballard's got a couple and they beat North Polk and so they're still those three teams at the top are probably the three teams, and then I think those three are far better than the rest, and then I maybe put in Bishop Heelan in those four.
You can never count out Bishop Heelan.
It is impossible. They're always good, and they just beat teams all the time. And so, but I think DCG, they're good. They'll figure it out. But yeah, they won't play. They probably played all their non-conference games, and I would assume they just went out for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Tell me about this North Polk team.
This North Polk team they're really good. They're one of the best teams I've watched, regardless of class, and especially in 4A. But their only losses was to DCG, and then they got kind of rolled by Centennial, which surprised me because I thought they could hang with those guys, and maybe they can, but they couldn't that game. They got outscored 17. They scored 3 points in the third quarter, 17-3, and so I don't know if they're just can't compete. Maybe the 4A and 5A gap's that big, and it might be
very possible.
But they're good. They'll probably win. They're going to win the Raccoon, and then probably make it in the tournament if they don't have DCG in there, but they're up there with those guys. And I don't know I think they play another big game for the rest of the year. They have a 6'4" chick, Becca Argard. She's leading 4A with 4 blocks per game, and she just sits in the lane. And
that is one thing you notice at the state tournament. If you have a tall girl, you can win state tournament games. And I'll never forget the Bofelli girl from North Scott that's at UNI when North Scott won 2 years in a row. They just couldn't stop her. I mean, it was just simple. If you have a center that is over 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", you're not getting stopped because you have such an advantage over the rest of the field. And that goes a long way. Height goes a long way.
Yeah, especially in girls basketball, there's just a lot of layups, a lot of offensive rebound layups, and she doesn't allow those. Yeah. So they'll be tough.
Just rely on 3-point shooting all the time.
No, and the teams that do, they just lose more often, but then they win big games because they shoot well. So they play Ballard and Bondurant this week, and Bondurant team that's kind of surprised a little bit. They lost a lot, but the Raccoon's tough, so we'll see if anybody else can take them out. I don't see anybody else beating them for the rest in the Raccoon, at least.
Waverly Shell Rock at number 4 best win is Xavier 55-50. They beat Clear Lake and they beat Kennedy. So pretty good wins there. That Xavier win's going to go a long way. I think that's a really good one. They play Center Point Urbana tonight and then Decorah on Friday. Very good players. Brianna Bodensteyer, Caitlin Egna, Lizzie Frazel, freshmen, all averaging 10+ per games. Waverly Shell Rock's going to be a fun team. Kind of a newer team. Haven't really seen them the last couple seasons.
Yeah, just we'll see if that Decorah game's a good game. They haven't they beat Xavier, but they haven't made it down to Central Iowa where most of these teams are. And I don't think will they play. Maybe they'll play Clear Creek. I'm not sure if they'll play any of those WAMAC teams or not.
They might, maybe.
I think they should. So, but we'll see.
Mason City's at 5. Interesting team. Only losses to Waterloo West, who I think dropped out or has almost dropped out of the top 15 of 5A. They're not the team that they were last year. They beat Decorah. They beat Gilbert. They play Ottumwa and Fort Dodge, then Sioux City East on Saturday. The Iowa Alliance is not the strongest conference in the world, so Mason City has a good advantage there. Opponent record of 60-92. Obviously, you can't help your opponent record, but sometimes that's how it works out. And Reggie Spots is averaging 14.3 points per game. So Mason City, the Riverhawks, pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well,
are they the Riverhawks? What are they now?
They're the Riverhawks, not the Mohawks anymore.
I got that right. I know they changed their mascot, but I was like, yeah.
Yeah, they're the Riverhawks. They I watched them play against Gilbert. They're a solid team, but like even watching them play and watching North Polk and DCG and these and like ADM play, they're not at the level they did, and they probably shouldn't have beat Gilbert. They shot really really well,
Hmm.
but I don't think and they might not lose really for the rest. They play Sioux City East. They're a solid team, but besides that, they don't play anybody. Like Ames is the next best team I think they play in Iowa Alliance. So
Yeah. Interesting. Bishop Heelan is at 6. You and I talked about them. They beat ELC 62-53. That's a big win over a very good Esterville Lincoln Central team. Stokes is one of the best players in the state, so good to get a win over them. Keep an eye on Bishop Heelan. They're just a very tough team. Melina Snoozy, a freshman, averaging 18.3 points per game, as if Bishop Heelan could get any better with new girls coming in. Norwalk is at 7. We talked about Norwalk. Lost to Lewis Central and then lost, obviously, to Dallas Center Grimes. They beat Indianola. I'm glad you put this. Beat Indianola 58-50. That's, like I said, an Indianola team that is not the same as they were in previous years. They're only 2-6. Bailey Birmingham, though, can shoot the rock. That's for sure.
yeah, she's nuts, and like it's maybe a concerning loss. Indianola's 2-6, but they've played good teams and they've lost, but still only beat them by 8. They didn't shoot well, really. Like Birmingham went 6 for 21, so she had an off night. But you got to be able to beat the teams that aren't that good and like make them statement wins if you want to be considered
I
up
can't
there with the
count
rest of
out.
them.
Yeah, I can't count out Norwalk at all because of Coach Joe Segrist, because of what he did at Valley. So I can't count out Norwalk at all. Central DeWitt at 8, only losses to Davenport North by 1 point. This is a good Central DeWitt team. Beat North Scott by 5, beat Bettendorf by 3, took care of Muscatine. Lauren Walker, 22.4 points per contest. So they got a couple bucket getters. Good to see Central DeWitt back up on the roll. Lamar's at number 9. They only have a loss to Heelan. They also lost to Dakota Valley, an out-of-state team. They get a couple good games this week. And then just kind of scrolling through the rest, Lewis Central beat Norwalk. That's a big win for them. Always expect Lewis Central to be good. Their only losses are to Heelan, St. Albert, and then Gretna East. Always interesting seeing the Western Iowa teams because they sure do play a lot of Nebraska schools.
Yeah, they do, and like I only know some of them. That like my cousin goes to Scott, and I don't think any of them play that, but Scott's like one of the best. But
Yeah.
like Lewis Central's tough. I think they play Harlan this week,
Yep.
and Harlan's tough. But like they both lose to like St. Albert. St. Albert's good. Their girls team is tough. I like this. I like this Central DeWitt team actually. Like they're obviously plenty good enough if they've hung with Davenport North, and then they beat Muscatine and Bettendorf and North Scott. They play. They have a game against McQuoketa, who's also a solid team, I think,
Yep.
this week. But I think that's a team to watch. That's my sleeper pick, which is a really big sleeper considering there's a big gap, I think, from Clear Creek, DCG, and North Polk and Heelan to everybody else. But that's my sleeper pick in 4A.
Just rolling through the rest because we put 15 here. Marion's at 11, obviously state champions a couple of years ago, beat my Grinnell Tigers. I was very hurt. They beat Benton, but then they got beat by Solon by 30, so there's quite a discrepancy there. Carlisle's at 12. They lost their first 3 games to Des Moines Christian, North Polk, and Pella, but they've turned it on ever since. Shout out Macy Camito. She's balling out, 20 points per game as a sophomore. Macokota lost to Mount Vernon and Regina. Those are 2 good losses. They beat Calamus Wheatland and Western Dubuque, 2 very talented teams. I think Calamus Wheatland's ranked, in the lower classes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're good this year.
Yeah, Pella's at 14. I had pretty high hopes for Pella this season. I think they can still be good, but they're going to be tough. And then Western Dubuque at 15th. Keokuk, another team that was thrown in there. I'm going to give my sleeper pick to Bishop Heelan. There's my easy. My favorite's Clear Creek and Manna.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty obvious that those 3 and maybe North Polk 4 are the top, but there's a lot of good. Like Waverly's undefeated, and like Central DeWitt's lost 1 game, Keokuk's lost 1 game. There's a lot of top teams that like they've proven that maybe some of them can't beat some of the other teams. Like DCG's playing kind of slow against some of them, so we'll see if any of them will knock it off. I do like this Carlisle team a lot. If you get the chance to watch Macy Camito, she's special. She's only a sophomore, and she's almost averaging a double-double with 20.9 points per game, 9.5 rebounds, and then like 4.5 assists. But she's tough. And then Emma Pitt's on their team as well. They struggled, which surprised me because they were a top team last year, but I think they'll pick it up and they can maybe hang with Norfolk and the
Yeah,
Raccoon. But to talk
absolutely.
about too a little bit, we talked about Ballard and they've slipped a lot. Like even we played them right before break. Gilbert did and beat them, and Gilbert's a solid team too. But Ballard's they've been plagued by a few injuries. Their big Brooklyn Baumgartner, she got hurt and
Oh,
she's 6'3". That she's a really good volleyball player too, so that hurt them a lot. But I don't know what to think if they're 4-5, but like you said, that's like uncharted waters for them almost.
yeah, yeah. That's tough. Tough team. Tough team. We'll see
Hmm.
how everything rolls out. We'll go to Class 3A. Solon is the number one team out of the WAMAC. Two WAMAC teams here to start in Class 3A. Solon lost to Clear Creek Amana, but then they took care of Marion. Callie Levin, like we said, is unbelievable. 20 points per contest. I feel like she's been there forever, man. She's been playing forever. Beat Mid Prairie, beat Marion. I mean, they're just a very solid all around team. Yes, the loss to Clear Creek Amana is tough, but in some ways, it's like, well, they're not in our class. Who cares?
Yeah, so they won't have to play them, but they play Benton on Thursday, and Benton's kind of got slapped around by everybody in the WAMAC.
They're an interesting team.
The WAMAC's tough, man. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of even some of the teams that aren't like the top ones are just tough. So they gotta if they want to prove themselves to earn the number one, I think they have to beat Mount Vernon and then win out because
Yeah.
some of these other teams are hungry and they're good. Like a Harlan team's good, and
Yeah.
Esterville, we obviously said they have maybe the best player in 3A. So
Mount Vernon is at 2. The Mustangs, just like Clear Creek Amana, a lot of the girls that were on the volleyball team play basketball. Chloe Meester, she's headed to Louisville to play volleyball. Obviously, she's just as good as basketball as she is volleyball. 16 points per game. Sydney Huber as well, 12 points per contest. They play Regina on Friday, what's going to be fun. They beat CPU. They beat Benton. A little bit closer games. I think they're one of those teams that I think the break helped them out a little bit. They beat Regina by 40, which was one of the big ones earlier. And then they play Williamsburg, but will eventually get Clear Creek Amana again. So that will be a fun one to match up against.
yeah, they play Williamsburg, who they're pretty tough. They might be ranked too, I think. But then it's CCA, Marion, Solon. So
Yeah.
they gotta get geared up for the ringer coming up soon.
Des Moines Christian at 3. Only loss is to Dallas Center Grimes, 50-24. Kind of one of those weird ones. But again, higher class, throw it away. I mean, I don't know. It was an early season game as well. Beat ACGC, beat Van Meter. They play Earlham. Pretty easy schedule for the most part. DMC's been at the state tournament a couple times. They had that really talented girl a couple years ago. Her name slips my mind, but very talented team at number 3.
Yeah, they opened the season, I think, with Carlisle and they beat them, but they got 10 wins, so they're obviously good. They're pretty like a complete team. Their leading scorer is Abby Hall. She's averaging 12.5, but then they have a lot of chicks averaging like 8, 9, 10. Not like just like a lead scorer that's just going to take over the game, but they're pretty well rounded and they'll be tough. They probably won't lose many games for the rest of the year because they're playing in the West Central and it's not as tough as it has been in the past. So
Yeah. Esterville Lincoln Central's at 4. It's that meme of they pull me back in. They lost to Sioux Central and Bishop Elan, and I'm like, all right, this isn't the team. And then they beat Noah Fonda 57-55. I don't care if Noah Fonda is in the lower classes. That's a good Noah Fonda team. So I'm all back. Haley Stokes, Riley Yeager, very good players, averaging 18 points per game. I mean, this feels like a team that's on a mission because, you get upset in the first round last year and you're like, well, that sucked. But at least, they returned most of what was lost last year or what lost last year. So I think this is the team on the mission this year.
yeah, they'll get it. Like she's so good. I mean, she can do it. Like she's averaging 23.5 points. And then like she's a good rebounder and she dishes the ball. Like she almost averaging 7 assists per game, which is crazy. So they're good. I don't know what to think. Like you said, those losses are kind of like that. Like just proves like there's an Achilles heel there. Maybe they're not as complete
Yeah.
as we thought. But then they beat No Fonda, so it's like, what am I supposed to think?
Yeah.
They're solid.
It's a tough part. Wahlert Catholic at 5. They're led by Claire Lucan. She's phenomenal. We've posted about her a couple times. They're out of the Mississippi Valley, so they're going to play tough opponents all season long. Number 6 is Harlan. You and I talked about them. And that win against St. Albert goes pretty well. They play St. Albert again this week. If you can get a season sweep, I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, St. Albert's tough. I don't even know, like they're like a 1A school, but they're just good. Like they were good last year, and they're just good at girls basketball. And then they play Lewis Central. I think actually they play tonight. So if they got to win that one, and then maybe you take out St. Albert for a sweep, that would maybe, in my eyes, that could put them at number one. And I know Solon's good and Mount Vernon's good, but they're number one actually on the Bound Power Index, surprisingly, in front of Mount Vernon and Solon. If they win those two games, I think they should be up there with those guys. So
Definitely. Forest City is at 7. Very sneaky team this year, but Forest City pretty good. Beat Clear Lake 72-33. That's a ranked Clear Lake team, by the way. They played Bishop Garrigan tonight. Obviously, not the same Bishop Garrigan team that's been Bishop Garrigan for the last 2 years or a couple of years, but they still have a couple athletes. Hayden Brown, Colette Lagus, and Emma Anderson for Forest City, all very talented athletes. Roland Story is at 8. Good year of basketball if you're a Roland Story fan. They beat PCM 72-44. Their best win is against Gilbert. And then, like you said, super heavy junior team. Roland Story can make some noise. Good
yeah,
conference, too. I mean, a conference that gives you a chance to win.
yeah, they can. I don't really know if South Hamilton's at the level that they're probably the next best team behind them in the heart of Iowa,
And
and
then
we'll
there's
see if they can.
Dell that has the girl that drops triple doubles every night.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love triple doubles. Get
I
that
think
rust stat in.
she might be the only one that rebounds for that team. Like
Yeah,
there are some points where I'm like, does anybody else touch? It's cool.
no,
It's
I'm gonna
awesome.
get it. I'm a score too.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah.
good. So we'll see if they like they're pretty spread out. They have a lot of juniors, like you said, but they're not like their foreign exchange student Matilde Moda is leading the team with 14 and a half points per game, but then they're pretty solid besides that. They have a couple bigs that are good, and they'll they'll be solid when it comes down. I think they can shoot, so they'll be good in the postseason.
Crazy. Monticello is at 9. Their only loss is to Western Dubuque. They play Regina on Saturday, so that'll be a good stepping stone for them. Jaden Cooper looks like the best player for them, 20 points per contest. Their defense is very good as well. Benton at 10. I think Benton's just stuck in a very wild WAMAC. They're beating the teams they should, and then, kind of struggling with a couple of the upper teams. They're probably going to get one of those upset wins. They get Solon on Thursday, so a good chance to kind of reset themselves. Algona at 11. They lost to Bishop Garrigan by 20, but they did beat Clear Lake, so a good win for them. Spirit Lake in there as well, pretty good team. So 3A is kind of everywhere. I mean, there's the top, but then the rest of the field could really jump at it.
Yeah, it's not like the 4A and the 5A where it's like the top 5 or 6. I think there's a lot of good, solid teams here. So there's some big games this week. MOC is a good team to watch. Jerriton's a good team. They only have one loss. I think it was and then like yeah, some of these teams they're solid. Cherokee, Washington. I think they play Esterville this week at
They're
some
tough
point.
team.
So we'll see if they're a tough team, but it's not like Harlan, Mount Vernon, and Solon. I think are the clear top three, but I don't know if they're that far ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, I'd put Wahlert Catholic probably as a sleeper if they are a sleeper, if anything. Claire Lucan's just a very talented basketball player. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Harlan's pretty good and Solon's just going to be tough. Solon's in another world, it feels like right now, but Mount Vernon's hanging right there. So excited to see those two face off here sooner or later. So
Yeah, I got the midgets as my sleeper. I
yeah,
think they're if you have a player like that and like you're just hot in the postseason, then it's hard to stop. So
yeah, yeah.
we'll see.
No surprise here. Down in 2A, Dyke New Hartford leads the way. Again, it's all the same players that it's been. The Peterson sisters are just phenomenal. Their only loss is to Solon by 1 point. I mean, that's a good Solon team. That was in tournament. That was in a tournament, I think, that they lost to them, or tournament, if you will. It was one of those days.
Yeah,
Took care of Appleton Parkersburg, took care of Hudson. I mean, they're just very talented. I mean, it just feels like this is the team that can get it done again.
yeah, they look like they're better than everybody else. I mean, they beat Hudson and AGWSR, who are good teams, by 35 or more. So um, they played Gladbrook and they're okay. They've lost a few games, but I think they're clearly number one. They're so athletic and they're so good. So
Yeah. Panorama at 2, talented team. Timmy Botcher, she's averaging 17 points per contest. Jaden Sellers, a team that has experience at the state tournament. The schedule gets harder, so we'll really see what they're made out of. But a 31-point differential makes the big difference for Panorama. Regina, we've mentioned them a bit. They play a lot of tough teams. They've lost to Benton. They lost to Mount Vernon. Very talented, though. Morgan Miller, very good player, and they play Monticello on Saturday. We talked about Monticello earlier. Anything about Panorama or Regina jump off the page?
Well, Panorama needs to play some better teams than they do in the second half, but they got to play some. Come on, let's play some solid teams in the beginning of the season. Like they've smacked everybody, and then I look at them like, well, yeah, they're good, but I don't know. And Regina, they're good. They'll play. Like they say, they play Monticello, but they play tough teams all year round. So they're both solid. I hope Panorama is that good because it'll make it more interesting for Dyke to have to play a team that's really, really solid. But we'll see once they get into the meat of the schedule.
Yeah, Westwood is at 4. I love that you put not sweet logo. I guess you don't like the Rebels logo of Westwood. It's a very simple logo. They're beating teams by a lot. Pretty easy schedule here to start the season. Addie Johnson, 19.7 points per contest with 7.6 rebounds per game. I mean, this is one of those things that, yeah, you don't want to just blow people out all year because not even at the state tournament, the regional sub-states can get really tough.
Yeah, especially in 2A, like there's way more teams in 2A than there is in 3A. So you're not going to be able to just like play 2 games and then they might play 2 games and get in if you have a bye, but I think it's 3. They're I don't know. Yeah, bad logo by the way. They should change that. It's pretty lame. But they don't play anybody. What'd you say?
Go ahead.
Well, they only play. I don't remember who it is. I put down. They only have one hard game the whole year, so they might be undefeated going into the regional. But we've seen that a lot with like some of these 2A and 1A teams that they're going to be undefeated the whole year because they don't play anybody, and they'll get into the regional and they'll just lose. So
it is kind of funny. I'm pretty sure is the lower classes and girls the regional championship. Do they play those at neutral sites?
I think they should in every class, to be honest. But
I know for the boys they do, but I can't remember. Anyway, home court advantage. Westwood could only lose one game, go undefeated, whatever, and they still might not get home court advantage because the committee might or the people that are seeding them could be like, well, you didn't play anybody all year, so yes, you're good, but it's just kind of one of those things. But
yeah,
Sioux Central is at 5. Fun team. They beat ELC. That's one of the things that stood off the page for me. You have them as a sweet logo. It's an old logo, but it's a sweet logo. Avery Wilson, 18.4 points per game. Brady Krager, 17 points per contest. Morgan Christian, 14 points per contest. Their only losses to Noel Fonda, who is very talented. But they have good wins. The rest of the schedule, the way, not as good, but they must have known that because that's why they stacked their schedule here to start the year.
Yeah, if you beat Esterville, you're obviously plenty good enough. So they'll be up there. I think they'll probably get they'll catch a Central Lion or somebody like that in there, or like an Emmitsburg team who's solid in their postseason because they're up there. Yeah. But I don't think they'll lose for the rest of the year. They might. They don't play anybody as good, but I don't see them losing.
Speaking of Central Lion, they are at the 6th spot, have been to the state tournament a couple times the last couple of years. Desta Hugendorn, 20.4 points per game with almost 10 rebounds per game, just short of 8. Very talented team. Eddyville Blakesburg Fremont is at 7. They beat Sheridan, but then they lost to Oskaloosa. So a little bit of a turnaround there. They do have 3 girls averaging 14 points or more. Molly Schaefer, very talented volleyball player. Aaliyah Wagamon, and then Ava Eastlick. They play Knoxville tonight, which should be a good game. Nottoway Valley is at number 8. Their only losses to Martinsdale St. Mary's. Martinsdale St. Mary's got crushed by Southeast Polk a couple weeks ago. Not that that really matters. Lindsay Davis seems to be a dog here for Nottoway Valley.
Yeah, she's a hooper. She's going to Upper Iowa, too. Cock Power represent Upper Iowa.
25 points per game.
That's impressive. That's
got to be up there in the state.
Yeah, I think that's pretty close. There's a couple other ones, I think, in the lower classes that are averaging high, but especially like in 3A, she's up there with Stokes, who's averaging quite a lot, too. So
North Mahaska is at number 9. Interesting team. North Mahaska, I feel like a lot of people are very gun shy about North Mahaska because They were it was 2 years ago. Is it last year or 2 years ago? Very good. Got to the state tournament, got to be the 8 seed, and then they got killed. Like, I think it was the worst first round loss we have seen at the state tournament. So I think a lot of people are very gun shy on North Mahaska. It's not their fault the conference isn't great, but they only have one loss, and that was to PCM. They beat Sigourney 41-29. They beat Grundy Center. Becklin Schilling's doing a great job. She's averaging 15 points per game. Very talented team. We have MVACOUCOU. You didn't even put that in right, I don't think.
No, get it figured out, guys. What is that?
I think it's MVAOCOU. I think maybe.
I
Either
don't
way,
know. Come up with a name. What is that?
talented team, almost 80 points per game. These girls are shooting the rock.
Yeah, they shoot 37 3-pointers a game, but they haven't played anybody. And I don't even think they will play anybody. They might just be undefeated for the rest of the year, but it's cool that they can average 80 points. They have 3 girls that are averaging 20 points or no, it's just 2, sorry. McClonny Yaki and then Trista Olheimer. They're both averaging 20 or more. So that's pretty impressive for a girls team to have 2 people averaging 20 points.
Yeah. Cascade at 11. One thing that stands out for Cascade, their only losses are to 2 ranked teams, Maquoketa and Monticello. So they're playing tough opponents. They play Tipton on Thursday. Molly Rolling is averaging 14.5 points per contest. Trainer is at 12 with only losses to Harlan and Nottoway Valley. So those are, again, good losses. They play Underwood. Jessup is at the 13th position. And Peyton Bowes averaging 13.6 points per contest there. Grundy Center, they play a lot of tough teams. Their only losses to North Mahaska, and then Applington Parkersburg is at 15th. They lost to Dykner Hartford 64-25. Anything stand off the page there?
Not really. I don't think that some of those. I think like the top 5 teams are there in 3A, and some of these. I think Grundy's a good team, and Cascade. We'll see. Like you said, they've lost to some tough teams like Maquoketa as a 4A team, and they're a 2A team, so they'll be good. They play Tipton, like you said, I think on Thursday. And if they can win, like Tipton's always a solid team. If they can beat them, then maybe they are one of those top teams.
Yeah. Just one of those things to keep an eye out on. Last one for classes. Class 1A, North Lynn is the number 1 team. Beat Central City and East Buchanan. Took care of Maquoketa Valley. Cammie Kurt averaging 19 points per game. Macy Bogue and Molly Bogue both averaging 13 points per contest. Their only losses to Clear Creek and Mana. I wouldn't fret too much. They do play Calamus Wheaton on the 5th. We'll talk about Calamus Wheaton there. And they take and make the 3 ball.
Yeah, 41%. Woof. That's crazy.
That's insane.
North Lynn dominating 1A basketball, both the boys and the girls. But that game for Calamus will be big because Calamus is undefeated too. So, and they won't, like the 1A schools, they're just so spread out, and the conferences are so spread out with the talent that it's hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's the same for the boys and the girls. So when you play a big game like Northland and Calamus do, you have to win it. You can't like just lose that one and then you're going to slip pretty far because you don't play anybody else that will be like a statement win. So,
yeah. Noah Fonda at number 2. Their only losses to Esterville Lincoln Central. They've taken care of everyone else. They beat Sioux Central. They beat Bishop Garrigan. They do play ELC again next week, so that should be fun. Kinsey Hinders, Kiera Jungers, and McKenna Sievers. I've called state basketball for the last 2 years. Those girls have been there forever. They're talented, averaging 10-plus points per game, along with Isabel Bartek. Martinsdale St. Mary's is at 3. They beat Nottoway Valley. That's a good win for them, a 2A win. Their only losses to Southeast Polk, but it's a 5A team. I'm not going to get you for that. It's good that you played them, honestly. But very talented team. Rensden St. Mary's is at the number 4 position. Close game against Hinton, a 44-40 win. Maya Bunkers, very, very good athlete. They have 4 athletes above 11 points per contest. And Riceville rounds out your top 5. They beat Crestwood 47-40. And then, like you said, not a lot of challenges the rest of the way.
Yeah, they'll probably be undefeated for the rest of the year. Some of these teams will be like, Remsen plays a big game against Kingsley Pearson, and then they play George Little Rock. So, but Martinsdale, like they usually shoot the 3 really well. They are averaging like they're making 9.5 3-pointers a game, and I don't think they made anywhere close to that against Southeast Polk, which is crazy. Like you said, they even play them. Good for them. That's cool. But they won't ever have to face a team like them for the rest of the season. But I like that they can shoot the three well, but it makes them like more vulnerable. Like they can play a game like they did against Southeast Polk and just get blown out. But if they're hot, then they might be the best team in 1A.
Your best team in 1A is St. Albert because they're at the number 6 position. It helps because they're in such a good conference at the Hawkeye 10. Their only losses to Harlan, and they beat Lewis Central. They took care of business against Underwood and Shenandoah. They beat Kemper. They beat Atlantic. Atlantic's, who am I looking at here? You just put Missy, scored 22 and 8. So, Missy Ivazic. Ava Underwood and Missy Ivazic and Ella Klusman, both averaging 10 points per contest. So, St. Albert, that conference helps them out beyond.
I think that, like, if you play against tough teams, you're just, like, good, even if you're not the top team. And they are the top. They might be the best team in the conference. So I don't even think – and maybe Newell Fonda's to that level, but they probably won't even play a team with, like, that just, like, level as Harlan or Lewis Central even for the rest of the year. So they're my – I don't even know if they're my sleeper. They're my favorite even, but they're probably not the favorite, so I guess they're my sleeper. But, yeah, I like this.
They get Harlan again, so that'll be a fun one. So
yeah, and they'll probably play Lewis Central again too. So
yeah, Calamus Wheatland, we've talked about them. They're at the 7th spot. They held 2 opponents last week to under 10 points. How about that? A 72 and 64 point win. They beat Marquette Catholic 61 to 26. They beat Northeast 46-34. They will get their not wake up call. They'll get things figured out on Friday night against North Lynn because that's the game. That'll really help them set the bar and be like, all right, where do we sit right now? That'll be a fun one. Bishop Garrigan is at 8. The life after Audie Crooks, not looking too bad. Their only loss is to Newell Fonda. Sasha Alish, 13.7 points per game. Graceland Eastman, freshman, 15 points per game. Emmy Bartolo, a freshman, 11 points per game. Very talented team. They play Forest City, so that'll be a good matchup for them. A higher, stat. They also shoot 71% from the line. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can shoot free throws, that helps a lot, especially in close games, which they'll have going into the postseason. I like that team. They're really, really young, and they've just been Class 1A has just been dominated by Audie Crooks. So maybe they're going to follow in the footsteps or not. I like the Calamus Wheatland Northland game will be fun. It's like Calamus Wheatland's worked up the ranks and they finally got their title shot.
Yeah,
and it's like this is the main card. This is UFC 300 right here, Northland and Calamus Wheatland.
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun one to watch.
Cam is at 9, Woodbine. Cam is at 9, led by Ava Stephenson. Woodbine at 10, Linville Sully at 11. Coon Rapids Bayer is at 12. Edgewood Colesburg is 13th. So very talented field. Usually the top 5 kind of pull away from the rest of each other, but I'd say there's about 7-8 good teams here in 1A.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, like Remsen's undefeated. Fremont Mills, I don't even think they're ranked very high because they haven't played anybody. They're 8-0. Georgia Little Rock's 8-0.
Yeah.
Cam's only lost one game, and then
you said in the notes here, you're like Fremont Mills and Mount Pleasant. You said need to get some new logos.
They have the same logo.
I mean, kind of. It's just different letters.
Different letters, but they're both yellow
anything,
and they're italicized.
George Little Rock might need a new logo. That thing's just a black horse, all black silhouette of a horse and GLR. I've always thought that's kind of it. But they kind of split for most sports. So
yeah, they do.
Just kind of
yeah, 1A it'll be interesting. There's a lot of tough teams and like the teams that are just always good, and Northland's good. But I like that St. Albert team. They don't play a lot of 1A of teams anyways.
Yeah.
They just play teams that are bigger than them and they compete and they win. So that's my pick. That's my sleeper pick.
We'll wrap things up with our games to watch this week. Number 13, Maquoketa takes on number 8, Central DeWitt. Good game. I guess we can pick these if we want. I'm going to take Central DeWitt.
Yeah, I think you have to take Central DeWitt. I want to pick them just because I want them to be good so they compete with those top teams in 4A. And they proved that North loss wasn't just like a fluke or something. So.
Yeah. Number 1, Johnston takes on number 11, Southeast Polk. I don't know, man. I'm excited to see how Southeast Polk comes out of the break. I mean, that Valley game turned some heads, but Johnston also took care of Valley pretty well. So I'll roll with Johnston. You can't not not pick Johnston. But I'll be curious to see if Southeast Polk hangs here.
It'd be cool. I mean, I didn't think they're going to beat Valley, and they did that anyway. So I don't even think Johnson will lose again. But like the anticipation and the pressure, I hope it doesn't get to them. But it's going to mount for like the rest of the year and the rest of the season. It's just going to be there.
Yeah. Remsen St. Mary's, number 4, takes on number 14th ranked Kingsley Pearson. I'm going to roll with Maya Bunkers in the gang. I'm going to roll with Remsen St. Mary's.
Yeah, I think they'll just separate themselves as one of those top teams in 1A I think they'll statement win. I think they'll maybe put up 20 on them.
North Lynn, number 1, we talked about it, takes on number 7 Calamus Wheatland. The first true test of the year for Calamus Wheatland. That's why I give it to North Polk. If it was like their second or third test, I'd maybe lean a little bit, depending on how they would have looked. But I got to roll with North Lynn.
I kind of want to take. They just beat teams so bad that I'm going to pick Wheatland just to see. And maybe they will. They'll just come in like they're the underdog for sure. And they might come in and just stun them and be like, well, we deserve that number 1 spot, not to be ranked 7th. Don't disrespect us like that. So I'm a roll with Calamus.
Couple really good games here. St. Albert, number 6, takes on number 5 or number 6 Harlan. So different classes, obviously. Does St. Albert get the rematch?
I like St. Albert. I just think they're fun to like pick them because they're 1A team.
So yeah,
but I like Harlan's good. They haven't lost, they haven't lost yet. So maybe if they beat St. Albert here again, I think they should be they could maybe be the number 1 team in 3A. But St. Albert's good. Underwood and Ezrick and Klussman, they're all averaging over 10, so they're solid.
Number 4 Waukee takes on number 5 Valley. This is a good one on Friday night, I believe. I'm calling this game, so I will not pick this game, but I'll gladly hear who you have to say.
I'll take Valley. I think they're good. They'll win.
Get back on track.
Yeah, they're gonna get it back, and they're gonna compete. Like they'll get it back. They're gonna win.
Number 8 Central DeWitt takes on number 7 Pleasant Valley. Phenomenal game. I'm gonna roll with Central DeWitt.
I don't know what to think about this game. Like the PV struggled, but
they're not struggling by much. Like it feels like a gap that they can close.
You just like assume that like they win, so they'd come back and they're good, but they've lost 3 games. But I think Quinn Weiss will take them past Central DeWitt.
Sioux City East taking on Mason City. That's a 13-5 matchup. Give me the upset. Give me Sioux City East in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take Sioux City East as well. I think Mason City is kind of
tougher competition for Sioux City East.
Yeah, I don't think Mason City is good unless they shoot really, really good, and they did against Gilbert. So I think they're not as good as Sioux City East.
Mount Vernon, number 2, taking on Williamsburg, number 14. Good story for Williamsburg. They have struggled in recent memory, but they've picked it up this year. I'm still going to run with Chloe Meester. They have size. Williamsburg just doesn't have that.
Yeah, she's just way taller than everybody. They're going to win. I think they'll just roll them probably.
Decorah, number 13, taking on number 4 Waverly Shell Rock to end it out. I am going to roll with the Go Hawks in this one.
Yeah, I think they've got some, like they beat Xavier. That's a good win. And then they got some young talent. Frazel, I like her. She's a freshman averaging over 10. I love the freshman and the sophomore. That gets me excited for the years to come.
Yeah, a lot of talented girls.
So they'll take care of business. I think they'll kind of smoke Decorah and put out their flame of what they think that they are at the point right now. So
we'll see what happens. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of Bound to Talk Basketball, Girls Basketball Edition. We will be back tomorrow with the Boys Edition. We hope everyone has a good week. We will be back next week. Make sure to follow Bound on all the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. He's Joey Kearns. I'm Blake Walker saying so long. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Thanks for watching. See ya.
See ya.